Nice bike.
Oh, hey, thanks. It's not even mine. I'm just renting it.
Oh, well, it's a nice rental.
It is. Hey, Rainbow here, and look what we got. Oh, I'll tell you, I'm gonna miss this girl. This has been a really good ride, I gotta tell you. This BMW R1200GSA, it's a great bike. It really is. Now, this is a 2017, and it runs great. I've already gone over some of the things that I don't like about it, but that's few and far between. I'll cut this out, get past the license plate. But it is a really good bike. So let's get on the road and talk about it, and then look at the size. Look at the size of that front end. Isn't that massive? Absolutely massive. So let's get on the road and talk a little bit more about this very comfortable, very good bike. The bike is smooth. I do have to say that this is a very smooth bike. This, the first thing that I thought of when I got on it is that it's smooth. Now, it has the boxer engine, which I'm not a big fan of the boxer engine, even though it's a extremely well-proven engine. And you can definitely tell it's a boxer engine when you get into the higher RPMs, especially if you're at a light and you give it a little bit of a throttle. You will certainly feel that torque that's trying to pull. Now, I've had this bike up over 100 miles an hour, and it was very stable, very smooth. It seems to be pretty nimble. I believe the turning radius on this bike is better than the Multistrada. And I'm going to attribute that to the fact that this thing has been refined over the years, and this thing also is really geared towards off-road. Now, this particular one that I have is not geared towards off-road. It has regular street touring tires. It does not have adventure tires on it. Since I'm renting it, I'm not allowed to take it off-road. So this is an extremely comfortable bike. BMW has had decades to refine and perfect this bike, and it's pretty obvious that they have. They put a lot of time and effort into this, because this has, you know, become known as, this is the bar for everyone else to attain. And KTM is really hard in on the game, and then more recently with the V4S, Ducati is coming on board with this. There's some medium ones. Of course, Triumph has always been there right with them. However, this particular bike has been really the mainstay of the industry. And I understand why. I really do. I like the suspension, although I came in hot on a corner, and now this has traction control, but I started to feel my ass end sliding out a little bit. So, you know, it didn't give me as much confidence in cornering on the street as I do have with the Multistrada. Now, for normal, you know, slow sweeping turns like this, it's not a big deal. Just about any bike is going to be able to handle this. But once you start getting into some tight corners where you're getting some good lean, I don't really have the confidence in this bike as much as I do the Multistrada. Now, you could say, well, you've been riding the Multistrada a long time. I've been riding motorcycles a long time. A feeling is a feeling is a feeling. There goes the Multi. No, I'm not going to say that this bike isn't capable, because this bike is absolutely capable of hanging with the best of them. And here's the way I'm going to put this. I think it's pretty obvious by all of the reviews, and some very intensive reviews about the Multistrada, and this GS is that this GS is going to outperform the Multistrada in the dirt, on the trails. On the street, I'm going to tell you right now, there's no comparison, and everyone else has already come to that conclusion, so this shouldn't be really new news here at all. I really like this bike. I wouldn't mind having a bike like this, or maybe one of the newer models, or even something like this. This has 5 riding modes. I have it in dynamic, which is the most aggressive that they have, the best throttle response. The heated grips are on. I did have winter gloves on earlier, and even with my winter gloves, very ergonomic, very easy to, you know, to reach everything and hit the buttons. Now I have my, you know, 2-season gloves back on with the heated grips, and the bike is very comfortable, very ergonomic. And as you can see here, it's nimble. Very nimble, and this is with a 19-inch front wheel and a 17-inch rear, just like the Multistrada. It is a pretty nimble bike. Now what you can really feel with this bike is the torque, especially on the lower end. This 125 foot-pounds of torque, it really shines on this bike, and you can certainly feel it at what I'm going to say is all RPM ranges. Here I'm in 5th gear, doing about just under 60 miles an hour, just about 4,000 RPM, and you know, it wants to get up and go at 4,000 RPM. If I put it in the 6th gear and drop it down to about 3,600 RPM at a little over 60, okay, it's not as much, but you can certainly feel the torque at these lower RPMs. Let's have a little discussion about engine braking. This engine braking, I'm just going to call it normal. It's what you would expect with engine braking. In comparison to the Multistrada V4S, that engine braking is definitely harder or harsher or tighter, if that's a word you want to use. And there's no adjustment with that V4S. I don't even know that there's an adjustment with this, although I kind of doubt it. So the engine braking here is normal. So what I do is I frequently use engine braking to slow down, and then I'll just tap the brakes with my left or with my right foot so people know I'm slowing down. But on this bike, it's not as harsh as the Multistrada, so I feel as though that's unnecessary. So now that I'm stuck in traffic, this is a good time to talk about the seat height. I am flat-footed with a little bit of lean angle to the right, and I have no issues with this bike. I have a 32-inch inseam. The current setup with the preload on here allows me to basically flat foot this, even though it says it's a 35-inch seat height. Now, I'm going to believe it. I'm going to guess that that's correct, I suppose. No reason to not believe it. I want to go see what the hell the Cowboy store is. That looks like something different. There's a Cowboy store. Is that... I wonder if it's just for cowboys, but I'm not a cowboy. But I do see motorcycles parked there, so it might be worthy of a visit to the Cowboy store. Hey, if I'm going to be here, might as well go to the Cowboy store. Oh, God. Let's do a roundabout test. not too bad. Can't complain about that. Not too shabby. So if there's one thing I miss about not riding my Multistrada is the blind spot monitoring. I guarantee you that the blind spot monitoring, once you get used to it, it's very difficult to not have it anymore. It just comes in handy and it gives you another layer of safety. Again, I still look both ways. It doesn't change that. It's just another level of safety, because we've all done things where we've looked at and see something and all of a sudden there really was something there. So it's just another layer of safety. The one thing that I don't miss about the Multistrada is that because it feels like just a sportier, faster bike, it's a Ducati, and you have all that power in horses, and the way it handles on the road compared to this. This handles great on the road. It just doesn't handle as good as the Multistrada V4S on the road. That's really the only thing. So with the Multistrada V4S, I have a little bit too much testosterone and kind of get suckered into unofficial races, or you know, you ride a little more aggressive, I guess you can say, and not always in a good way. But in this case, not having that and knowing that I only have 125 horsepower, which is a lot of horsepower, but it's a heavy bike, that I'm not getting suckered into things. I'm not letting my testosterone overrule my brain, and I'm riding less aggressively. I always ride defensively, but I'm riding less aggressively, I guess is the best way to put it. That probably is the best way to put it. I'm just less aggressive. When you have the Multistrada, you're like, okay, I'm gonna get around, let me go over here, you know, and I would probably shoot between those two vehicles, but I'm not gonna do that because I just don't have the power or confidence or handling on the highway with this bike. Again, this bike is fantastic on the highway. There are no issues with how this handles. It just doesn't handle as good as the Multistrada V4S. With that being said, the Multistrada V4S does not handle as well on the highway as the Panigale or as a BMW 1000RR, you know, a sport bike. You know, they're different machines. And in this case, ultimately, the Ducati is really made more for the street, for the road, for the highway. And this thing, it's definitely made for both. Just like the Ducati is made for both, but this is going to excel off-road more than the Ducati. Not that the Ducati isn't usable off-road, it certainly is. It's just because it's actually very good off-road. It's just that this bike performs better off-road, and that's pretty much it. I mean, this is it in a nutshell when it comes to these kind of bikes. I mean, there's no surprise here. You know what, let me get past you. So there's one thing I can't let, I just can't do this video with. I totally forgot about this. This is by far the hardest bike to find neutral that I have ever sat on and ever rode in the last 46 years. This bike is crazy difficult, molto difficile to put into neutral. I have to tell you, this bike is just, oh, the neutral, it's like it's just in this little area that it's temperamental. So I had to throw that in there. I don't want to forget this.
So what's my overall impression of the BMW R1200GS Adventure? Well, it's very capable. And you've heard this before in the video. The bottom line is, it's a great bike. It's a great all-around bike. It does everything extremely well. When I compare it to the Multistrada, there's no comparison on the street. On the street, the Multistrada has you beat hands down. Handling, everything. Acceleration, excitement, all of that, Multistrada. Dirt roads, Multistrada. Going on the trails, the BMW is going to have, certainly going to have the edge on that. Again, it's a great bike. It's a great it's a great all-around bike. Some people like Chevy, some people like Ford, some people like Toyota, and they're sold for life. It's the same thing with motorcycles. There's nothing any different about either one of the bikes. Now, one thing about both bikes that I need to bring up is that they're always neck and neck when it comes time for reliability, okay? Typically, and there's been multiple articles about this, there's been different surveys done about this, and not all of it is numbers based on returns. It's based on what their experience has been. Of course, the Japanese bikes always seem to be at the top of the list, and always in the top 8 is usually BMW and Ducati. Ducati seems to hold one position higher as far as better is concerned than BMW. I will tell you that BMW leads the industry in recalls. That's one thing to take into consideration, but they're both great bikes. The fit and finish of both are fantastic. They're both very capable bikes. You have to make the decision on your own which one you prefer. So I'm going to put it here in a nutshell. If the majority of what you're going to be doing is going to be adventure riding off-road on trails, then you're more than likely going to be better off going with the BMW. If you like the thrill of being on the road and you want something a little sportier that's still really comfortable and great for touring and great on the road and super handling, can't go wrong with the Ducati. The choice is yours. They're both great bikes. I own the Ducati Multistrada V4S. I would certainly love to own maybe one of the newer R1200GSAs because it's a fantastic bike. I almost think that they're sort of apple and oranges because they both have their strong points, but together we are comparing apples with apples. This is Rainbow. Like and subscribe if you like this, and have yourself a great day. Bye-bye.